Hey guys, sorry I cannot be there at school today. I'm gonna have to miss one more day. So my daughter was sick, and then I came down with a fever. I got tested for flu, strep. Doesn't look like I have anything, but to be on the safe side, they told me I can't go back to school until Monday, since I had a fever. So I'll be out one more day. So what I want you to do is, one, did you do the assignment the last class that I was absent on? Or did you finish that one? If not, make sure that you finish that assignment. Today's assignment, I want you to read chapter 1, section 2. So this section is going to cover how sociology got started. So for one, when it comes to sociology, like that wasn't always an academic study. So there were some problems that were happening in the 1700s with poverty. There was a lot of issues going on in Europe, and the poverty and that situation led people to want to understand why and how we got to that point. So then we have the Industrial Revolution that occurs, and there are some major changes. We go from people working in the house, producing their own goods, to now we have factories. We have rural life that changes into urban life. And so with that comes some challenges, comes some difficulties. And then you start to see a lot of people become poor, people living on the streets. And so what's going on? So there were different theories and different ideas that came about. Sociology didn't generate, and the name of it or anything develop into the later 1800s. So one of the first people that coined that, as you will read, so you're going to read about 8 different sociologists. So the first one that coined the term, he's the father of sociology, he's the one that came up with the word, is Auguste Comte. Comte. So you'll read a little bit about his life, what he was about. He was the early European scholar. He was French, so none of his works were translated into English until Harriet Martineau did that. So she, a lot of people didn't really want to listen to her. She was a female back in the 1800s. She had some writings, but not a lot of people wanted to read about her. She has an interesting story. She was actually born with some medical issues that led to her not being able to taste, not being able to hear all the way, but she still accomplished a lot. The difference was she didn't want to just study sociology. She wanted to make a change in society. She wasn't just looking at people. She wanted to find out, how can we fix some of the problems? So she saw a problem with slavery. She was an abolitionist, which means being against slavery. She also fought for women's rights. So you'll read about her and her story. Herbert Spencer. So Herbert Spencer was one that looked at society and said, hey, maybe we don't need to help people. Maybe it's survival of the fittest. So he came up with the word social Darwinism to say that, if people are poor and they die, oh, well, it's going to create a better society. Not everybody believed him. Not everybody accepted his ideas. And it didn't really turn out to much. People actually later on found that maybe we do need to make some changes in society. This isn't how it's supposed to be. So then you have other scholars that write about sociology but weren't really considered a sociologist, but they contribute to the field, such as Karl Marx. So Karl Marx has an interesting backstory if you read about him. He is the one that came up with Frederick Engels, the Communist Manifesto. So he believed in the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So the bourgeoisie was the rich people, the ones that had all the money, and the proletariat were the poor people. And so he basically said the poor people are going to rise up. They're going to fight against the rich, and eventually there's going to be this all-out rebellion. The poor are going to take over. There's going to be a classless society. It's going to be all about what you can achieve and where you work hard at, but it's not going to be the way it is now. We're not going to have a class society. Well, his theories obviously didn't really pan out. We do have a class society today. We have the poor, we have the working class, we have the middle class, we have upper class. So we still have a class system, even though he thought that it was not going to continue to exist into the future. Then you have Emil Durkheim. So Emil Durkheim is very interesting if you read about him. He's got some good ideas. He talked about the function. So the function is basically looking at society and saying, hey, it's built up into these parts, and each part has a job to contribute to the whole picture. So there's a function of these different parts. So one of an example would be the education system. So its function is to teach all of you guys to be able to learn and then contribute back to society to make society function. He had the functionalist theory, and that's the perspective of the functionalist theory. Another example of an institution that helps society would be religion. So religion teaches you values, teaches you how to behave in society, teaches you not to commit crime. So every part of the whole picture creates that, society that can function. Max Weber was kind of different from Emil Durkheim. He said, let's look at individuals. Let's look at how the group affects individuals. Let's look at their feelings, their emotions. Let's find out their thoughts. And so how do their thoughts affect their actions? If we were to step into somebody else's shoes, then maybe we can understand their perspective and how they function in society. He also came up with the ideal type to describe things. So, for example, we have an ideal type of the school system. It's a place where kids learn. They might have a tablet or a laptop, and they learn in the classroom. And there's all these characteristics about the ideal type of a school. Now, it may not be the same for everybody. Some people might have school at home. They do online learning, or they might have school in a different type of building, or they might be homeschooled. So just because there's an ideal type doesn't mean that every single thing falls under that ideal type. It just has similar characteristics. Then you have Jane Addams. So she was one that wasn't necessarily considered a sociologist, but she contributed. She wrote things that ended up in this Sociology journal. And she also tried to help society. So she saw a home that was dedicated to helping the poor back in Europe, and she wanted to bring that home to the United States. So she created one called the Whole House. So if you are a junior right now taking U.S. history, then you'll learn a little bit about the Whole House and how Jane Addams contributed to that. You can also read it in that section. And then you have W.E.B. Du Bois, which is the French way to say it, or you can say Du Bois, which is the English way to say it. So he was the first African American to graduate from Harvard University with a doctorate degree. He was the first to really look at the African population and find out why are they struggling. He helped create the NAACP. He had a large contribution to sociology as well, that saying that we need to look at race relationships. Where are we going wrong, and why is this still a problem? Why is racism a problem, which still exists today? So all of these are sociologists that I want you to look over and read about. So go through this section, try to learn as much as you can. And then at the end of it, I want you to answer the questions: recall, identify, and explain. So one, why was Herbert Spencer's view of society referred to as social Darwinism? So I kind of said it in the video, but you can look back in the chapter. Identify what in sociology terms is a function. And then what did Max Weber mean by the term Verstehen, I think is how you say it. Those three questions. And then I want you to just take some notes also as you're reading. Give me some key ideas about each sociologist. So we're going to talk about them a little bit more in class. We're also going to come up with a poem about the sociologists, so you need to know about them. And also there will be a quiz over the sociologists. So I want to make sure that you know about these. So please don't take it easy and sit around and listen to music and not do this work. I want you to read about them and try to understand more about the sociologists from the past. They do have a big influence on how we view things today and modern day sociologists that we will also get into. Thank you very much for listening. If you got to this point, make sure you do your assignment, listen to your sub, please stay off your phones, and I will see you guys next week. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.